It's hiring season for educators. So I'm going to go through the technique that I use to write and revise my resumes, the way that I help my friends and family with their revising, and pretty much the idea is what advice can I give to you? So it's not going to cover a lot of the major advice that you get that's in general resume writing, right? Like don't have a bunch of typos or 4 to 6 bullet points for each job position or whatever it might be. This is really looking at a strategy that I use for myself and when I'm helping others that I think is pretty gnarly, and it's perfect for educators. I'm sure you could use it elsewhere, probably in other very service oriented industries like social work or something. But the idea is that anybody in education, this is a good strategy. I've used it for me becoming a specialist. I've used it for me becoming an administrator, and I've definitely used it for me becoming a teacher. So, without further ado, I'm going to explain my strategy. It is write with your heart, revise with your head. So, what this looks like is really going through and what you're writing as your description for each position that you've held, going through and writing where you're really exposing what's important to you as an educator. It's a little bit easier for my ELA folks than probably my STEM folks, but I'm going to give you a really hopefully good concrete strategy on how to do it. So the first thing you do, number one, is you need to write out your list of all your core values. Um, so your core values, I'd suggest first really being reflective and introspective before you go searching like the internet for core values of educators, which you can, but try to be a little reflective first. So, for example, one of my core values, it really is about um, creating like readers and writers, like where they identify as reading readers and writers. It's not just I'm going to go do this assignment for this class. All right, I want to make a kid who wants to read for the rest of their life and who identifies as a writer. That's important to me. Another thing that might be important, right, to different people, which hopefully this one next one's important to everybody, but equity, right? So equity. Um, can be core values that are just you as a human being, right? Trust, integrity, um, collaboration's a big one. That one's a big one for me. Like you have my heart at collaborative ways of doing things. It's not just about working in a group. It's about really truly having the skills and fostering those skills in kids to collaborate. Like that's a huge one. So you're going to write that down. You want about 10 or more. If you can't come up with 10, go do a quick Google search, find some good values and character traits of you. And you can even, search like traits of a teacher. And then it has a big long list, right? It's, oh, innovation. Yeah, that is what I'm about. You add it to your list, right? So you're going to add to the list the things that are actually you, authentically you. And then what you're going to do is you're going to write your descriptions based on those things. Because here's the deal, everybody looking at your resume has been a teacher. Unless you're sitting in an interview where there's a parent, counselor, administrator, department head, fellow teammates, they've all taught. We all know what the job is. You're going to facilitate lessons and write lesson plans and make sure the children don't kill each other with hopefully some good classroom management, right? Like that's the job. That's not going to be something that in the description is going to be unique. What's unique is the values you can show that you have. So how does that look? So instead of, let's say I'm writing my description, I'm looking at my core value of equity. Well, what does equity look like in your classroom? So probably looks like something similar to differentiation, right? And to meeting those needs of all of our learners in different ways. So what you're going to do instead of writing your resume is like differentiated lessons for students in order to meet their needs, period, which is differentiation, which is the job. Like we already know you do it because you got to do it. You're going to instead think about that core value. So it might be created an equitable learning environment through differentiation and responsive instruction, or through differentiation and PBIS strategies, because that's also a part of equity, right? Is how that we help students who maybe are needing to learn something behaviorally a little bit different than another student because they come with a different background or a different set of needs. Okay. So, again, you're just using your list to write your resume. You don't have to say the core values, but that you should convey them. So let's say, for me, one of my big ones was collaboration, right? What does that look like in my classroom? And um, and also becoming that community of writers. So that's my classroom management one right there. I'm not going to say manage the class, to enforce school rules. Like, of course you did, because if you didn't, you're not doing your job. Instead, it's build a collaborative writing and reading and writing community in order to that was based upon respect and trust. I don't know, making it up as I go along, but the idea is true because that was important that kids could trust each other and that we could respect one another as readers and writers and that we could collaborate and that it was a community. I say so much more in that sentence than I managed a classroom and enforced rules ever could. So you're going to write your entire resume that way. You're going to go through your core values. What does this look like? Right? And some of your core values maybe don't get included because obviously it might be more religious based. And so it's not necessarily something you're going to put in a public education resume. But obviously, if you volunteer for your church, that volunteerism should be on your resume. That's you being a servant to others, which is what teachers are. So that's how you write it. So how do you revise it? So the way that you revise it is now I'm going to give you this side is going to be my job description. So the job description, I print it out. My resume, I print it out and I get a highlighter. And what I do is each line in my job description, I'm looking at my resume. So, job description talks about facilitating lessons. Where in my resume have I shown that I am, meeting this thing? And I highlight it. Yay. Now, if I highlight it here and it's down here, I need to make a choice there. I need to decide I don't want to be redundant. I don't need to be redundant. Yes, I did it at this middle school, and yes, then I did it at this middle school. Is this important enough to be one of my primary points? Or is this more something that needs to be a secondary point? Well, it's instruction. It needs to be a primary point. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just exit out of my second description. Don't be repetitive. Okay. As I go through and I'm looking, okay, there's this thing. And do I do this? Yes, I do. Here it is. And maybe it's just half of a bullet point. That's okay too. Maybe it's, oh, this is my certification over here on the side because I use one of those beautiful resumes that has a bar, which is my advice to everyone. Use a resume that has a bar on the side. That has like, your certifications and your expertise and the colleges you went to. Just it makes it so easy to find that information. Then I come across something in my job description that's not on my resume. Let's say it's contacting parents, right? Something about parent communication. Well, I'm looking over here, it's not here. So I highlight it on my job description. I go through the whole job description, I highlight what's on the resume, yay. Okay. Ideal world, resume, 100% highlighted. Job description, no highlighting. That's what we're going for. Real world. On this resume, there's some stuff that's not highlighted. Chances are you don't need that. That's when you really have to look at it and say, should I just delete this? And do what you think is right, depending on the situation. Because you might not need this. Okay? Job description. Ideal world would have no highlighting because everything was in the resume. But our job description talks about contacting parents. And that wasn't in our resume. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add it to our resume. So the way that you add it to your resume, it doesn't have to be its own separate bullet point. You can tack it on to something or interject it into a description that's already there. So if you're already having a description about progress monitoring of students, you can add in the part about while also keeping parents, informed about their students' progress. So now you've just added a little to one of your bullet points that addressed one of your job descriptions. It is that easy. Just write with your heart and revise with your head, and it's that easy. So That's my strategy. Of course, you want to revise. Of course, you want to have a million people look at it and see any possible error. You want to make sure you're not, if you're applying to another district, you're not using your current district's email as your contact, or any of those other things that should be obvious, or that you can get information through another resource. I'm just kind of going through the resource of what I can think of to see if any other things that are big red flags. Oh, do include your campuses. I think that's a big one for me on my end. I want to know if you were in blah 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 ISD. It was at this middle school. When it's a large district and you're not listing your campus, I kind of get nervous that maybe you're trying to, for some reason, not list it, or maybe there's more to the story and you moved campuses a lot and you're just trying not to tell me. So, make sure you list your campuses. That's important. I think it doesn't make me feel like there might be something hidden or something I have to go investigate later. All right, so that's a really brief. I'm sure there's even better ideas. You can feel free to, write questions underneath the video. I will respond back when I have a moment. Or you could even, hey, I'm having a hard time with how do I write this, and I can help with that as well. I just want good resumes because I want, people who take their resumes and their job seriously to be able to get that interview. So we can see if it's a good fit. Alrighty, bye.